Hi there, Colleen Adrian here. Just want to talk with you today about what I believe is one of the very best practices for responding to your child who has low self-esteem. And I'm talking specifically in this video about kids that are hard on themselves and maybe they say sort of, self-hate comments or, things. I'll give you some examples. Things about themselves where they're judging themselves or criticizing themselves. So here it is, the most important tip or practice to use with these kids is to pay attention to their feelings and to acknowledge their feelings, right? We often respond automatically by trying to tell them what they've said isn't true or why their perspective isn't accurate or true. And that's rarely helpful. In fact, I would say, I don't think I've ever heard anybody tell me that it's helpful. So let me give you some examples here, some concrete examples. So maybe your child says, oh, I hate math, right? I'm terrible at it. Maybe they're crying. They don't want to go to school today and do math. Excuse me. And it could be hating anything because they feel like they're not good at it. It could be skating or soccer or playing the piano. Um, and you might be tempted to say, oh, like you're not so bad, you're getting better, or even just straight up, no, you're not terrible at it. I saw you, you got this on your test or whatever your response is. Um, I'd like to suggest that you try instead to acknowledge their feelings. So really tap into how they might be feeling. Maybe it would be something like, oh, you're like you look like you're really feeling sad, or you really wish that you were better at it. I can see that you really, really wish you were better at that already, right? And you're not feeling very happy with the progress that you've made or where you're at, or maybe it's a recent test that they've done. So obviously you're going to tweak it and make it accurate to the situation, but you get the idea. You want to tap into what their experience is and you want to acknowledge that and you want to empathize, right? The truth about whether they're actually good or bad at something heard from you is probably not going to be helpful. Yeah, and acknowledging, maybe you were hoping for something different and you're just feeling really sad. So something like that to acknowledge their feeling and their experience. Another example, your child says, oh, I just hate my hair. It looks awful, right? And you might be tempted to say something like, oh, I love your hair, or your hair is so beautiful, or, you know, lots of people pay money to, pay a lot of money to get beautiful curls like you have, right? Depending on, what your child is saying. So again, I'm going to suggest that you tap into what their feelings and their experience is and really try to reflect that back to them and empathize. So it might be, you really wish you had different hair, right? You really wish your hair was straight and it's curly, and that sounds really hard. Or, maybe they've talked about their friend's hair. Maybe it's your daughter and she has a friend named Brenda and Brenda's got hair that she loves, right? And you really wish you had hair like Brenda, don't you? So that kind of empathy said with, a soft face, softness in your eyes, looking into their eyes can really go a long way to helping them feel heard and understood, right? It's tempting to try to fix it or to try to say something that disproves what they're saying, thinking that it'll make them feel better. And again, that typically doesn't work. Usually, what I hear from parents and what I've experienced myself is that it makes things worse, right? The emotions escalate. And the reason for that is because they don't feel heard. They don't feel like you get it. And they're having a really painful moment. And for all of us, whether you're a child or whether you're an adult, what typically makes us feel better when we're having a painful emotional moment is feeling like there's somebody there that understands, right? That understands and that cares about how we feel, right? So that's my best tip for a practice to use with your child who has low self-esteem. And I'm going to just toss in a couple of more tips here because you might be thinking to yourself, well, Like, what do I do after that? Like, do we just, empathize and then kind of where do you go from there? Um, and I'm not going to go into all the different scenarios. There's probably more than I can even think of, but just to give you a couple of tips, if your child has just started a new activity and they're not very good at it yet, just because they haven't been at it for very long, um, after you've empathized with how they're feeling, you might be able to encourage them to keep practicing. And I'm going to link an article below. And I might have done another video on this too. One of the things that I encourage parents to think about is saying, you're still at a beginner stage, sweetie, right? Like everybody does it like this when they're starting, and they get better by practicing, right? But again, you don't want to start with this. You want to start with empathy. Um, I'm just looking at my notes here. I think that's all that I have to say about that. So give it a try. Let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear from you. Have you tried this? Did it work? Did it not work? Do you have questions? If you do, pop them down below. And don't forget to check. I'm going to link some, whatever other articles or videos that I've done on this topic, I'm going to link those down below too. And I know that I have written and recorded more on this. So take good care. Thanks for listening.